You'd think that all these new vehicles, with how expensive they are, they were built to last forever. Well, you'd be wrong, because the fact remains is there's still a pile of vehicles that are so poorly built that they won't even make it past the warranty period expiration date. I'm going to share a list of some of the garbage vehicles that you want to avoid like the plague if you care about your money. Let's get into it now.
Life's too short to drive boring cars.
And here's one for the books that likely won't make it past the warranty period. Is this little Volkswagen product right there. You see the big VW. This is the Taos right there. You have fake tips on there. You have the LED lights, and they have a lot of great amenities and great technology. You get sunroof on top and some great integrated screens in there. All kinds of goodness here, but lots of plastic in there as well. But unfortunately, even though there's mixed reviews, some people love these, some people don't love them so much. The Taos here has a very controversial history. Obviously, it's not all that new, but you know what? The DSG, the double clutch gearbox, is a big area. Jerkiness, extremely sharp and aggressive, as well as the engine is a problem area for some of these vehicles. And a lot of people weren't loving the fact that they were blowing head gaskets, they were lurchy. That 1.5 liter turbo engine just lacks a lot of inspiration. And I know somebody personally who put a deposit on one when it first came out, and it had to sit and wait and wait. There was a recall, and there were some issues with some fuel lines that were potentially leaking, and that had to get sorted out. So definitely some quality control challenges, drivability, where it's a little slow on the uptake. It doesn't move all that quickly down the road. And many customers, while they complained when it was brand new, they said they had to learn the driving behavior of the driver. The fact remains is the quality control of these vehicles lacks a little bit of polish. Here's a car that's likely not going to make it to the warranty period, at least not without a significant pile of repairs. And we're talking about a BMW M550 or even the M5 generation. Now, there's been some updates on the M engines that we're seeing in the 4.4 liter twin turbo V8 engines, that they're talking about the oil control rings, that they're made of a different material that tends to scratch the cylinder walls, and instead of just scraping the oil, they're actually scraping the cylinder walls, creating scoring and potentially catastrophic engine failure with some age and time and deterioration. That's one issue. You've got the hot V as well, turbochargers in there cooking the top of the engine, gaskets, seals, and all kinds of other issues. Creates melting of wiring, plastics, of course, water pumps, thermostats. All of that parts become, they're plasticized in a lot of these modern day BMWs, and because of that, two turbos in the hot V all packaged up there nice and tightly. Even though the latest updated versions of the 4.4 liter twin turbo V8 are much better, they're still not out of the woods, and they have a whole host of issues with battery draw, hot V issues, oil consumption issues coming out the back, oil control rings, turbochargers. And while not all BMWs are bad, if you stick with the new Turbo 4s and Turbo 6s, the B48, B58, you're going to get yourself a reliable platform. Unfortunately, when BMW steps up, and they've always had problems with V8s, they've made them better, they've made them worse, but they've never been out of the woods, and they've always had issues, reliability challenges, catastrophic engine failures, and just exclusively high maintenance costs just to keep the vehicle on the road. Even if you're able to keep this thing running well beyond warranty, it comes at a serious cost. So the BMW 5 Series, 550, or the M5 generations of the latest F90 generation, specifically even the competition M5, are going to likely see very expensive repairs and hit the warranty period. Yeah. Good luck. And right here's the next one in line that will not last outside or up to warranty. And I know two people that own these, and both reaffirmed some of the major issues you're going to find with these vehicles. Now, it's pretty eyesore looking vehicle. It looks very awkward. Yes, body panels don't fit very well sometimes. The general paint conditions isn't great. Body fitment isn't great all the way around. Electrics have been a problem, but we're talking about the Encore here, and now Envir or GX or whatever you want to call it now, they are not built to last. Where you can get all-wheel drive, of course, made it up to a 9-speed automatic transmission, or a CVT transmission driving the front wheels, all from two different engine choices: a 1.2 liter turbo 3-cylinder or a 1.3 liter turbo 3-cylinder engine, and they both have either 137 horsepower or about 152 horsepower thereabouts. Not significant amount of power, and while it's a price point vehicle, the price can't be enough to pay for some of the repairs that you get for these vehicles. And while it's not the most expensive out the box, it is in fact very weak. Now, a lot of people have complained about transmission issues, smoking, juddering, not shifting, not engaging. Lots of issues with transmissions, lots of talk about that. And the folks that I know, both of them have commented that they have these weird delays, and then you hit it and it goes, and they took it to the dealer and they didn't get anything really resolved, but they just sort of learned to live with it. And then other issues with the engine, the 1.2 and the 1.3. I know the one guy that I know actually blew his engine altogether, and the other one said, yeah, they had some heavy oil consumption issues, and there was all kinds of other problems. Drivability, they had to take it back to the dealer to get it retuned or maybe recalibrated. There was an issue in drivability. They tend to burn oil, they make a little bit of extra rattly noise, knocking, pinging, and they're not the most refined product if we're being honest. But the bottom line is that's too much vehicle to be pushing around with 1.2 liter. I have a lawnmower with an engine of the same capacity. It's almost just too much. We're almost too much gone too far with pushing our luck, where the turbocharger itself is almost as big as the engine physically. And while it's a price point, and a lot of people buy them because they're affordable and they just need something cheap to get around, it might get you around for a couple of years, but make it to warranty? Doubt it. And here's another one that doesn't seem to be shaping up to last all that long, and very good possibility of it not making it up to the warranty period, at least not without some major repairs. Of course, you do have some suspension issues, although these are built fairly sturdily, and the full-size Bronco like this is the one you're going to want to buy if you're going to need to buy a Bronco of any sort, because the small Bronco Sport is the one that's built in Mexico, is substandard. It's basically a unibody suspension and drivetrain and chassis, and it's very lightweight. This one here at least is built on a truck chassis, but because of the general quality of these vehicles and being a Ford, as we're noticing right here, you're going to risk the longevity of this vehicle. People are already talking about electric issues, transmission problems, fuel system issues, but the big problem here is with some of these turbocharged engines, the EcoBoost engines, and there's already a lot of people talking about cam phaser noise, rattling noises up front. That's their variable valve timing system. You have direct injection, and turbocharging means that there's lots going on. Just like a lot of their full-size pickup trucks means that there's a huge risk. Look underneath the engine under there is hiding nice and tight, and they don't rank very highly in terms of overall reliability with transmission, engine issues, electrics, and of course you got leak potential here. And have you heard the latest of engine failures and potential recalls for these vehicles? The Ford Broncos as well as the F-150s carry very similar drivetrains. The 2.7 and the 3-liter turbocharged EcoBoost engines under the hood here do require some replacement or repair. Allegedly, there's an issue with the intake valves where that particular supplier provided valves that went into the intake manifold that could fracture and crack the head off. You crack the head off, put a valve loosely into the combustion chamber, and you have a recipe for a catastrophic failure. And that's likely what's going to happen here. So any of those 2.7s and 3.0s in the Ford Bronco lineup are likely going to be on the radar for an engine swap anyway, coming up real soon, because unfortunately more quality control challenges for Ford on the table. Well, it's not the worst vehicle on the lot, and certainly it will likely outlast a Range Rover. I don't put a lot of faith to get a ton of miles out of this, and to make it to warranty without that major repair is a stretch and a shot in the dark. And right here is the older previous generation, which is basically a museum piece. This is a vehicle that never made it out of the garage and therefore didn't have chance to wear out prematurely. But what we're talking about here is this model, and it's a Jeep, and it's the new version of this because we're talking about new vehicles that won't make it outside of warranty. And here we're talking about a Compass here by Jeep. Unfortunately, these vehicles are not well made. You get leak, water ingress, you got electrical issues, totally integrated power module problems with some of these vehicles, transmission issues, engine problems, fuel consumption, oil consumption, and the like. All kinds of problem areas with these vehicles, and quite honestly, a lot of them are not built to last any significant amount of time. The quality hasn't been with Jeep for quite some time, and why would they start now? So the bottom line is, it's a price point car which unfortunately has almost doubled in its original MSRP since day one. It just doesn't make the value add anymore, and unfortunately the quality hasn't followed suit with the price tag, and therefore the brand new Jeep Compass is definitely one that won't make it up to warranty. And what do we have in front of us here is good old-fashioned found on road dead. Yes, that's right, this is an Escape here, happens to be a hybrid here, titanium, but we're really speaking about a specific engine in the specific model. We know that a lot of these Ford Escapes have had problems over the years. A lot of the older generation versions up to and including 2014 were very problematic with transmission issues, shifting, juddering, not shifting properly, not engaging, and being very problematic. Sure, while it has a Porsche Macan front end, it does definitely looks to inspire from a lot of the German brands, and it does look a lot better in this latest generation of the Ford Escape. But unfortunately, there's with many different drivetrains, some are better than others. Some of the older models, you had blown head gaskets, you had transmission problems, and a whole plethora of issues. Not just, of course, electrics, which seem to be problematic, brakes, which seem to be problematic, transmissions in certain models be problematic, and the engines were a big issue with a lot of these vehicles. Now specifically, some people love the 2-liter 4-cylinder engine, and even the 2.5-liter upgraded engine seem to be slightly less problematic. But the engine that you want to avoid, because this vehicle with that 1.5-liter turbo 3-cylinder engine will not last. You get the rubber oil pump drive, you also get their timing belt, everything's in oil. It's not built to last. It's a similar engine as you're finding as well in the EcoSport, which is the smaller SUV, and as well on top of that 1.5-liter 4-cylinder engine that you get in this base model is a big problem. Why is that a problem? Well, other than heavy oil consumption, oil burning, bad transmission issues associated with that engine configuration as well. But now there's actually a big recall, open recall for some problems associated with the fuel injectors, which potentially can leak down. They've been known to crack, and there's an associated NHTSA recall with those fuel injectors on the 1.5. What they were suggesting to NHTSA was they were going to put in a patch, watch for a pressure drop as the gas spilled down onto the ground, because they were going to run a trough and just basically a band-aid it, allegedly. But since then, NHTSA said, no, that's not going to work. We need something more permanent than that. This is not quite the right fix we're looking for. On top of it, going by the little history, we know that Ford had some head gasket issues in some of their turbo EcoBoost engines, and EcoBoost in general means EcoTurd, a lot of problems. And well, some people get miles out of them. You can get miles out of anything if you keep rebuilding it, replacing it. But the bottom line is it's not a well-built engine in most cases, most of these drivetrains, and is likely not going to make the warranty period, at least not without spending some money or going in for multiple repairs. You know, it's actually hard to make wiring and electrical systems drip oil, but leave it up to the Brits and they actually have it figured out. Yeah, what we're talking about is the Range Rover, the full-size Range Rover. Ask yourself this question: how many of these do you actually see out driving around on the road? Either you see one that's maybe 5 or 6 years old that's finally left to die in the backwoods of your local dealership, or you find a brand new one that's leased because the first 1 to 2 years is actually relatively decent. But these vehicles here are so expensive, so problematic, and so full of technology that it begs the question, why would anybody want to buy one of these vehicles? They rarely ever make it very long. You don't get a lot of miles out of these modern day Range Rovers. And sure, while they've upgraded, and some of the Range Rovers, they've adopted BMW's new twin turbo V8 engine, the fact remains is there's a whole pile of problems, whether it's the new engines, the old supercharged V8s, you get timing chain problems in certain generations. You actually had O2 sensors, direct injection injectors would fail on you. Air ride suspension means a lot of times this vehicle would sit down on its rump, either front, back, or all the way around. Of course, there's issues with the rear differential, the rear hatch, as well as a whole plethora of electrical issues in these vehicles, from these handles that freeze up and lock up and they won't open up in the wintertime because ice gets in there, to these mirrors that get crunchy in the middle of the winter, to these sunroofs on top that stop working and they hold up on the rails, to a whole list of smoke, catastrophic failures, and even body panels that come off once and then they don't go back on very well. I know personally somebody who works for a JLR dealer, and he says they are so problematic, constantly finding yourselves take a body panel off inside and it never quite snaps together again in the same time. So it often has a whole pile of issues associated with these. Do they drive nice? Sure. Do they look nice? Absolutely. Do you want to keep one outside of warranty? Never. These vehicles won't last outside of warranty, and the worst part is you're going to pay the piper, and unless you have the income of the King and Queen of England, forget about it. This vehicle will drive you to the poorhouse. Right here's another one with some of the worst reputation for reliability, and this one likely is not going to make the warranty period. Unfortunately, we're talking about a Nissan. Yes, Nissan Rogue, as you'll notice right there. Absolutely a beautiful looking vehicle, but unfortunately it has very little going for it. Now, unfortunately as well, I know somebody recently picked one of these up and they asked me, what do you think? What should I buy? I'm looking for something smaller, subcompact in the SUV format. And I said, look, go Toyota, go Honda, go Mazda. And then what do? They went with the Nissan. And unfortunately, they made a bad decision before, and they bought themselves a Hyundai SUV, and they also had that absolutely catastrophic engine failure associated with that. So obviously this person does not listen to sense, and they went out and bought one of these vehicles. These won't make the warranty period. There's a couple main reasons. Well, one, of course, is a CVT, which Nissan, unfortunately, is known for. The Jatco CVT, continuously variable transmission up here, which is known for catastrophic failure. A variety of different belts and pulleys are known to fail. If they blow in, not if, it's really more like when they blow, you're talking about a $6,000, $7,000, maybe $8,000 repair for that. Then, okay, sure, it looks attractive, but there are issues with some of the electrics. We've heard of problems with some of the fuel issues and fueling, and as well, definitely electrics all over, sunroof alignment, and all kinds of other miscellaneous problems. But the big issue with these vehicles is the 3-cylinder 1.5 liter engine that happens to be a variable compression engine under the hood. That's right, it alters variable compression, turbocharging, all in one, direct injection. It's a whole pile of technology wrapped up into one little 3-cylinder ball, and is known already for premature engine failures, metal shavings in the oil, catastrophic failures, oil consumption, and just a downright poorly designed engine that feels very innovative when you first look at it on paper. But do you think you're going to get 200,000 miles out of that engine? Yeah, not likely. Now here's one. And when you think of vehicles like Lexus, you often think of reliability. You think of vehicles that are trustworthy, they're guaranteed to run hundreds of thousands of miles, but you could not be further from the truth, because this particular model right here has had a whole plethora of issues. Right here by Lexus, as we see the big brother or luxury brand to Toyota, we have obviously some great new designs. This is the new updated style of this particular version. Here we have the laser cut wheels. We have this beautiful little step guard right here. Look at the two-tone handles, love it. And all kinds of this extra chrome, absolutely beautiful. And how about that back finishing? Everything looks fresh. Even around here, you get the LED taillights, and I love that new bold script by Lexus right there. And everything looks good. You've got flares, you've got new design themes, big fold-away mirrors, and of course, lots of glass on top to keep everybody inside all happy. That's between tow truck operations. Because unfortunately, the latest LX600, like we see right here, as by Lexus, has been plagued with problems, just like one of its other siblings from the Toyota brand carry this same drivetrain. Now, I've seen these vehicles right here at the dealership actually already with engines pulled out because the engines had to be replaced. But that's nothing new. There's lots of these that hit the recalls because of catastrophic engine failures, and Toyota has literally been licking their wounds trying to sort out these issues. Now, what that is a 3.4 liter twin turbo V6 that they've put in here, and they've replaced the ultra reliable 5.7 liter V8 engine that used to be bulletproof and was good. There's even been cases of over 1 million miles, but not here, because this new 3.4 liter twin turbo V6 has had a pile of issues already. So many, in fact, a whole plethora of these engines are getting swapped out, both on Lexus and one of their major sister brand Toyota products. But these vehicles, these engines, otherwise, most people trust Lexus. The worst part is these vehicles sit and sit and sit, and you got to wait for your engine to be replaced, and that just is not becoming of Toyota, unfortunately. And we all trust the brand, but it feels like this shift in technology has brought some new challenges for Toyota. They always enjoyed their naturally aspirated 5.7s, 4.6, 4.7 V8s, 3.5 liter V6s. Get the gist? You see the trend here? All of their old school, long-standing, naturally aspirated V8 and V6 engines have been their tried and true production champions. But unfortunately, Toyota and Lexus are transitioning to the new world. Smaller engines, turbocharging, throw some hybrid on there, a whole new level of complexity wrapped up in these vehicles. And most of it's under the hood. In this case, the transmissions are fine. The electrics, it is Toyota and Lexus products, so that generally holds up fairly well. And outside of that engine, which is the heart and soul of any vehicle, unfortunately, is the only real major issue outstanding right now on these brand new Lexus series of vehicles. Now, time will tell if they get this sorted out. They're already working on it. They said there's allegedly word that there was particulate in the engine that wasn't properly flushed out after machining in the factory, which wound up in the bearings and took out the main bearings and ultimately resulted in a whole series and string of failures. But here we are. This is one that likely, because of the engine problems, won't last even anywhere near the warranty period, at least without doing a full engine swap. Sorry, Lexus, Toyota. Ouch. And with all of that said, if you want to find some good quality vehicles, the most reliable vehicles of pretty much every genre right there, you're going to check it out. Hope to see each and every one of you on the next one. We'll see you all real soon. Bye-bye.